The hum of the washer was still vibrating through the floor when my daughter barked, "Get up, you're not a guest here." As I pressed my palm to the warm metal lid, I felt my shock pull itself into a steady line. While the machine kept rumbling, its low grind sounded more honest than her voice had in years. The same trembling rhythm reminded me whose name actually owned the life she was standing on. That's when I realized the laundry wasn't the burden living like this was. So I got up, walked out, and removed her name before the cycle ever finished. All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. The sound that woke her wasn't the pain. It was the soft, irregular tapping at the window, snowflakes flicking against the glass like someone too polite to knock properly. Only when Evelyn tried to roll onto her side did the pain arrive, a sharp grind in her hip that made her catch her breath and stare at the ceiling until the throbbing settled. The room Kara had given her was small but neat, beige walls, a narrow dresser, the walker folded in the corner she refused to touch unless she had to. The furnace hummed through the vents, fighting off Denver's early winter chill. She turned her head toward the window. Beyond the thin curtains, the sky was a muted gray and the neighboring roofs were dusted white. For a moment, she let herself imagine she was in her own bedroom in her own house with her own chipped mug on the nightstand. Just a few more months, the surgeon had said. You'll be back home before you know it. Shady believed him. Laundry as piling up. Kara's voice shot down the hallway, clear and hard-edged. Evelyn's grip tightened on the blanket. You're not a guest here, you know, Kara added louder. The word guest landed like a slap. Evelyn swung her legs over the side of the bed, moving slow, waiting for her hip to stop yelling at her. No one appeared in the doorway. No, are you okay? No, do you need help getting up? Just the faint clicking of keyboard keys from Kara's office and the low murmur of her work voice through the half-closed door. Evelyn found her slippers with her toes and slid her feet in. Her cane waited where she'd left it, leaned against the wall. She pressed her palm into the mattress and pushed herself up, breath hissing between her teeth until she was standing. The hallway was lined with framed photos. Kara in a cap and gown, Kara at some company Christmas party, glitter dress and fake snow, baby Nate in a plastic kiddie pool. Evelyn herself appeared exactly once, holding toddler Nate on her hip in front of a maple tree on a fall afternoon, his fingers tangled in her hair. The frame was crooked. She left it that way. At the end of the hall, the laundry basket slumped in the doorway of the utility closet, overflowing. Socks, jeans, dish towels, hoodies, a gym shirt that smelled faintly like stale sweat and detergent. A corner of one of Evelyn's own towels was visible near the bottom, pale blue against the darker colors. The washer door gaped open, waiting. Morning, Grandma. Evelyn turned. Nate stood there with his backpack slung over one shoulder, hair still damp, earbud cord peeking from his pocket. He glanced at the basket, then at her cane, his face tightening. Sorry about Mom, he mumbled. She's been, intense. Morning, Evelyn said. You headed to school. He nodded, Bustleby sliding all over, probably. He lingered, shifting his weight. Do you, need help with that? He jerked his chin toward the laundry. She gave him a small, steady smile. I'll manage, you'll miss your bus. He hesitated, then stepped closer and squeezed her shoulder, quick, awkward, real. Text me if you need anything, I mean it. I know you do, she said softly. His shoes thudded down the stairs. A blast of cold air swept up when the front door opened, along with the faint sound of his love you, Mom, and Kara's distracted yeah, you too, from her office. Then the door clicked shut and the house was quiet again. Just Evelyn, the furnace, and the basket. She eased herself down enough to reach the top layer of clothes. Kara's leggings, Nate's t-shirt, a dish towel with orange sauce stains, her own nightgown thin from years of washing, her towel, her socks. Evelyn separated her items out one by one and placed them in a neat pile on the dryer. Old training kicked in the same hands that had folded linens in hospitals at 2 a.m., that had smoothed blankets over strangers and told them they weren't a burden. She folded her nightgown into a tight, square bundle, the towel in thirds, then halves, edges aligned. The rest of the laundry stayed exactly as it was, a chaotic heap in the basket. She didn't touch it. From Kara's office came a sudden burst of laughter, the bright, practiced kind she used on clients. Evelyn straightened, her hip complaining, and caught sight of the corkboard on the wall next to the thermostat. A sin. Glee envelope was pinned there, forwarded mail with a yellow sticker, the county's seal in the corner. Her name was printed across the front in bold black letters. Evelynmbard. Her fingers tightened around the folded towel. Guest. She'd spent her life making sure other people never felt like that in her home. Now, in her daughter's house, she was being reminded that every small comfort had a price tag. Evelyn walked past the open mouth of the washing machine and stopped in front of the envelope with her name. The pain in her hip sharpened, but under it something else began to form, cool, solid, familiar. The quiet part of her that did paperwork, signed forms, made decisions other people tiptoed around. She held the towel against her chest, eyes on her name, and felt the moment settle like a stone in water. For the first time since she'd moved in, the thought came not as a flicker, but as a full sentence. I don't have to stay here. Her hand lifted toward the envelope, then froze halfway as another, even colder thought slid in behind it. The colder thought slid in clean and sharp. Everything that actually belongs here still has my name on it, not hers. Evlynmbaird stared back at her from the envelope. Not C.O. Kara, not shared, just hers. The ache in her hip pulsed once like a gavel. She turned away from the corkboard and moved back down the hallway, the cane ticking softly against the floor past the laundry basket she'd left untouched. Her room felt smaller when she stepped inside, like a hotel space the morning you decide you're checking out early. The bed sagged in the middle. Her nightgown lay crumpled where she'd left it. Evelyn went straight to the closet. The overnight bag sat on the top shelf, the same faded blue duffel Kara had tossed her way before the hospital discharge, saying, just pack what you need. You'll be with us a little while. She reached up, careful but determined, and dragged the bag down onto the bed. The zipper tab felt cold under her fingers. Open, then decide, she told herself, but the truth was she'd already decided. She folded her clothes with the kind of focus she usually reserved for consent forms and medication lists. Soft pants, loose tops, thick socks, only the things she actually used. Her fingers skimmed right past the blouse Kara had bought last year, tags still on, wrong color, wrong woman, that stayed in the drawer. She unplugged the small blood pressure machine by the bed and coiled the cord tight, tucking it into a side pocket. The medical alert base was last. She hesitated, thumb resting on the plastic housing. Every discharge nurse she'd ever known would scold her for this. She pulled the plug anyway. The device beeped once in protest, then fell silent. The room seemed to exhale with it. Her phone sat on the nightstand. She picked it up, scrolled through contacts, and found the name she wanted. Leona answered on the second ring. If you're calling this early, it's either good news or your daughter finally crossed the line. Evelyn let out a breath that was almost a laugh. You were right about her. What happened? Leona's voice sharpened. She stood in the hallway this morning and yelled about laundry, Evelyn said, keeping her tone even. Told me I'm not a guest here. A low, furious sound came through the speaker. I told you, Leona said. To her, you're free labor with a bum hip. Evelyn looked at the half-packed bag. Not for much longer. You want me to come get you? I'm getting up, Evelyn said, feeling the words settle into her spine, but not for her chores. She paused, choosing. I'm getting up for paperwork. On the other end, Leona went quiet in that particular way she did when she was already reaching for a notepad. Good, I'll clear my morning, you get yourself here. We'll start with coffee and end with signatures. They hung up without ceremony. Evelyn finished packing. Wallet, IDs, discharge papers, the small tin with her husband's ring. Her pill organizer went into her purse. She did one last sweep of the room and found nothing she wasn't willing to leave behind. The clock on the dresser read 11:07. Kara would be between calls, half listening for the microwave, not for her mother. Evelyn walked down the hall past Kara's closed office door. Her daughter's voice floated through, light, professional, softened for strangers. Oh, my mom? Yeah, she's here while she recovers. It's been a lot. Evelyn didn't slow down. At the front door, she put on her coat and wrapped her scarf, fingers steady. She opened the door, stepped into the thin blanket of snow on the porch, and pulled it shut behind her with a soft click. No note, no goodbye. She was halfway down the block when her phone buzzed. Kara, where did you go? Evelyn stared at the screen until the message stopped blinking, then locked the phone without replying. She tightened her grip on the cane, turned toward the bus stop, and took another careful step, already picturing a different O. F5's door, one where her name on the paperwork would finally be used on purpose. The first thing they put in front of Evelyn wasn't coffee, it was paper. Thin, white, government-flavored paper, spread across a polished conference table on the 8th floor of a downtown Denver office building. Outside, snow dusted the narrow slices of city she could see between other gray buildings. Inside, the air tasted like toner and old carpet. Leona sat at her right, arms folded, purse parked on the chair beside her like it might lunge into the conversation at any moment. Across from them, a woman in a navy blazer and rolled sleeves adjusted her glasses and tapped the top page with a pen. Okay, Ms. Baird, she said. Let's see exactly what your daughter thought she was sitting on. Her nameplate read TRINAHOVEY, Attorney AT Law. She didn't look like she wasted time on small talk. Evelyn's overnight bag rested at her feet, a quiet reminder that she'd left more than a house behind that morning. Her hip ached from the bus ride and the walk, but the ache had become background noise, like the hum of the fluorescent lights. Trina shuffled the stack in front of her. You currently own 3 properties, she said, primary residence on Elm Street and 2 rentals. She turned a page. These are fully paid off. Yes, Evelyn said, years ago. Alone. Alone. Trina's eyebrow lifted the slightest bit. Good. She slid one sheet to the top. 8 years back, you signed a deed adding your daughter to the Elm Street house, joint tenancy with right of survivorship. The words hung in the room like a diagnosis. Evelyn stared at the familiar address printed on the page. She remembered that day well enough. Kara smiling, talking fast about simplifying things, the notary stamp thunking down on the counter, her own tired signature at the bottom. Back then, it had felt like protection. Now it just looked like leverage she'd handed over for free. Did she ever make a mortgage payment? Trina asked. No, Evelyn said. It was paid off before she finished college. So she has legal ownership, Trina said, with zero financial investment. Her gaze sharpened. And she treats you how? Evelyn saw the laundry basket again. The open washer, the envelope on the corkboard. You're not a guest here, you know. Her fingers tightened around the head of her cane. Like the help, she said, who sleeps under her roof. Leona made a disgusted sound. Told you. Trina flipped the deed around so it faced Evelyn. All right then, she said. We undo what should never have been done. We'll draft and file a correction deed removing your daughter's name. It needs to be precise and it needs to be fast before she gets creative with this. Can she? Evelyn asked. She can't sell without your signature, Trina said, but she can try to cause trouble. We're going to make that effort a waste of her time. A legal assistant slipped in, set down a takeout bag and 2 paper cups, then slipped back out. The smell of soup filled the small room. Leona pushed 1 cup toward Evelyn. Eat, she muttered. You can't sign your life away on an empty stomach. They ate in a quiet broken only by keyboard clicks and the soft rustle of pages. The soup was salty and too hot, but it pulled warmth back into Evelyn's hands. Her phone buzzed beside her napkin. Voicemail Kara 1. She turned the phone face down without listening. Trina printed a fresh document and slid it across. This is the correction deed, she said. Initial here, here, and here, then sign at the bottom. The phone buzzed again. Voicemail Kara 2. Evelyn picked up the pen. The paper trembled minimally beneath her hand, but her signature came out steady. EMBAIRD, looping and familiar. Third buzz. Voicemail Kara 3. She's going to keep calling, Leona muttered. She can feel the money moving. Fourth buzz. Voicemail Kara 4. Evelyn signed the last line, then set the pen down like she was setting down a weight. Her hip still hurt, but a different kind of pressure had lifted, one she hadn't realized she'd been carrying since the day she let another name onto her title. The fifth buzz was louder somehow, rattling the phone an inch across the table. Voicemail Kara 5. Trina looked up. You can step out and call her back if you want, she said. Some people feel better explaining themselves. Evelyn picked up the phone, thumb hovering over the notifications. For a heartbeat, habit pulled at her answer, smooth it over, make it easier for everyone but herself. Then she pressed and held until the voicemail list shrank into a single line. No new messages. She put the phone back down, screen dark. Trina watched her, then tapped the signed pages. These go to the county this afternoon, she said. Within a few days, your daughter's name won't be on this house anymore. Evelyn exhaled, slow, good. After that, Trina added, voice sharpening a notch, we talk about your will, your rentals, and how to lock every S. Angle door she thinks she has a key to. Kara had once stood in Evelyn's Elm Street kitchen with her phone out, scrolling and pacing. You could refinance, she'd said, eyes bright. Pull some equity, add a real office, French doors, built-ins, nice backdrop for client calls. This place is just sitting there. Back then, Evelyn had only heard noise. Today, in Trina's office, she finally heard the plan. Your daughter ever mention refinancing? Trina asked, scrolling through county records. She mentioned using the house, Evelyn said, for an upgrade. Trina's mouth flattened. Then we're cutting that dream off at the root. She slid a fresh packet across the table. This is your living trust. Instead of you owning the house and rentals in your own name, the trust owns them. You control the trust. When you can't, your chosen trustee steps in. Not a bank, not your daughter. Who do you want standing in that doorway? Leona asked quietly. Evelyn didn't have to think long. Kara saw the house as collateral. Leona saw it as armor. Her, Evelyn said, nodding at Leona. Trina made the change in a few quick keystrokes. Trustee, Evelyn Baird, successor trustee, Leona Strauss. She looked up. Once this is recorded, if your daughter walks into a bank waving old paperwork, she's going to hit a wall labeled Baird Living Trust. She can't refinance what she doesn't own. Evelyn signed where Trina pointed. The trust, the deed into the trust. Each stroke of her pen felt cleaner than the last, as if she were rewriting the part of her life Kara had quietly assumed belonged to her. A little later, Trina's computer chimed. There, she said, deed recorded request submitted. Scans are in your inbox now. Evelyn's phone lit up with the email. Subject, recorded deed and trust, Baird. She opened it, stared at the PDF with her name and Leona, the blank where Kara's used to be, then hit forward and typed a new subject line. Laundry notice received. Send. Almost immediately, another notification slid across the top of the screen. Nate, you okay? Mom's freaking out. Evelyn studied the message, imagining Kara on hold with some loan officer, realizing the house had quietly moved out of her reach. Evelyn's better now. She sent it, then set the phone down. Leona nudged her ankle under the table. You just boarded up every window she was counting on. Before Evelyn could answer, her phone buzzed again. Nate, she just got off the phone with the bank. What did you do? Nate's text glowed on the screen. She just got off the phone with the bank. What did you do? Evelyn typed back, thumbs slow but sure. I protected what's mine. She hit send before she could cushion it. The three dots appeared, then vanished. Across the table, Trina closed one file and opened another, thinner one. If you've still got gas in the tank, Trina said, we should finish the rest while you're here. The rest? Evelyn asked. Titles are one thing, Trina said. What happens when you're gone is another. Right now your will leaves everything to your daughter. Of course it did. That document belonged to an earlier version of their family, phone calls, Sunday dinners, a daughter who hadn't yet weaponized the word burden. Do you still want that? Trina asked. Evelyn thought of the laundry basket, the 5 voicemails, Kara's voice at the bank pitching a future that used her house as scaffolding. No, she said, I don't. Leona finally came out under her breath. Then we decide where things actually go, Trina said, pen poised, and we make it very, very hard for anyone to claw them back. They moved through the easy parts first, small accounts, personal items, the insurance policy. Then Trina tapped her pen on the trust file. The rentals, she said. When you're gone, who do you want living off those checks? Evelyn saw 2 little houses she'd kept in decent shape for years, and a parade of weary faces from her home care days, women who had nowhere steady to land. There's a refuge on Colfax, she said, High Ridge for women starting over. Leona looked up, the one with the broken coffee maker. Evelyn nodded. Give them the rentals, both, let them use them or sell them, their call. Trina's eyebrows rose. All right, she said, already writing. Upon your death, Trust distributes both rental properties to High Ridge Women's Refuge. And my daughter, Evelyn asked. That's the next part. Trina turned her monitor so they could see. This is a no contest clause. It says if anyone challenges your will or the trust and loses, they get nothing. Not a token, not a keepsake, your daughter included. Leona smiled sharp. She tries to fight, she walks away empty-handed. And this, Trina added, typing again, tightens the trust if you're ever incapacitated. No surprise updates when you're too foggy to argue. Think of it as fireproofing. Evelyn sat with that a moment. Can I say why I cut her out? You can, Trina said. Short is better, judges don't need monologues. What? Evelyn took the pen. The page stayed blank for a long breath. Then she wrote in neat, deliberate script. Removed due to disrespect during recovery. No story, no laundry, just the truth. When every signature was finally in place, Trina scanned the documents and swiveled back to her computer. You'll get copies by email, she said. If a bus hits you tomorrow, your daughter inherits nothing unless you deliberately put her back in. Evelyn's phone buzzed. An email from Trina slid in. Subject, executed will and trust, Baird. Followed immediately by a text from Kara. You're being dramatic. The preview showed more. I talked to the bank. This is insane, Mom. After everything I've done, you're not thinking straight. Evelyn didn't open it. She slid the phone face down, like setting a noisy object back in a drawer. An hour later, Leona dropped her in front of a big box store near her neighborhood. The automatic doors sighed open, releasing a wave of warm, artificial air. Evelyn made her way to the linens aisle, cane tapping on bright tile. Rows of towels towered around her, thick navy, clean white, soft gray. She ran her hand over a stack, feeling the plush, unshared softness. No chore chart, no hallway summons, just a quiet decision. She chose 4 dark blue bath towels and 2 hand towels, then a new bath mat that wouldn't curl at the edges. Small things, entirely hers. At the checkout, the cashier asked, "Find everything you needed." Evelyn slid her card into the reader. "More than you know," she said. Her phone buzzed in her pocket as she stepped back into the cold, plastic bag swinging lightly from her wrist. Another message had come in while she was paying. She assumed it was Kara, until she pulled out the phone, glanced at the screen, and saw Nate's name instead, with a question that stopped her on the icy sidewalk. The squeak of the front gate reached Evelyn before the knock did. "Mail," Leona called, letting herself in like she always had. Boots thudded on the mat, then she appeared in the kitchen doorway with a small stack of envelopes in one hand and suspicion in her eyes. "Junk, junk, electric bill," she muttered, flipping through, then she stopped. "And this ugly thing." She held up a thick white envelope with a downtown law firm's logo on the corner, not Trina's. Evelyn set down the navy towel she'd been folding. "Let me guess," she said. "Somebody found out their golden ticket got voided." Leona dropped the envelope on the table. "Want me to open it?" she asked. "I can curse at it for you." Evelyn studied her name on the front. The address was underlined in blue pen, like emphasis could change ownership. "Where's my fire pit these days?" she asked. Leona blinked. "Back patio, why?" Evelyn picked up the envelope, feeling the weight of whatever arguments Kara's new attorney had stuffed inside. "Come on," she said. "Let's save ourselves the hourly rate." They stepped out onto the small concrete patio. The metal fire bowl sat cold and empty, rim still dusted with ash from the last time Evelyn burned leaves. "You sure?" Leona asked. "I've already paid one lawyer I respect," Evelyn said. "I'm not giving a stranger a chance to talk me out of my own life." She dropped the envelope into the bowl, struck a match, and touched the flame to the corner. The paper blackened, curled, then caught with a soft whoosh. The law firm logo warped, the blue underline blurred, and whatever demands lay inside turned into gray ash. Leona watched her instead of the fire. "How's it feel?" "Quiet," Evelyn said. "That's worth more than whatever's in there." Back in the kitchen, her laptop chimed. An email banner rolled across the top of the screen. "From Trina Hovey. Subject: Final Estate and Trust Filings, Baird." Evelyn opened it. Trina's message was short, precise. "All final estate documents have been filed and recorded. Prior instruments are now superseded. Copies attached for your records." She clicked one attachment, the will with its no contest clause. Another, the trust, naming her and Leona, leaving the rentals to High Ridge. Kara's name was nowhere. Leona leaned over her shoulder. "That's it then," she said. "On paper, she can scream all she wants, nothing moves." "On paper," Evelyn echoed. On another screen in another house, Kara was sitting on her couch, phone in hand, thumbs flying. She typed out a status. "When your own parent turns their back on you." She wanted tag at Evelyn Baird for maximum sympathy. No results. She searched again, nothing. Her mother had disappeared off her couch, off her voicemail, and now off her feed. "What the hell?" Kara muttered, refreshing, as if that might pull Evelyn back into orbit. At Elm Street, Evelyn closed Trina's email and saw a new message waiting in her inbox. "From Nate Baird. Subject: Please don't shut me out." She opened it. "Grandma, I miss you. I know you and Mom are mad at each other, but please don't punish me too. I didn't yell at you. I didn't ask for any of this. She keeps saying you're cutting us off and ruining everything. I don't care about the house. I just don't want to lose you. Nate." The words blurred for a second. She blinked them clear. Leona watched from the sink. "Him?" she asked softly. "Him," Evelyn said. She clicked reply. "Nate, I would never punish you. I can't control what your mother says about money. What I can do is make sure you're never dependent on it." She opened a new tab, pulled up the bookmarked page from the local community foundation. BAIRD Start Again Scholarship, beneficiary, Nathan Baird. She copied the private link and pasted it into the email. "This is a scholarship in your name for when you're ready for college or training. It's already funded. No one can touch it but you. I am not cutting you off. Love, Grandma." She hit send. The whoosh of the outgoing message was almost louder than the kitchen clock. For a breath, nothing happened. Then another email slid into her inbox, subject line bold and unfamiliar. "From High Ridge Women's Refuge. Subject: About your extraordinary gift." The brochure hadn't done the mountains justice. From the passenger seat of Leona's car, Evelyn watched them rise at the edge of Denver, blue-gray and snow-capped, like someone had painted a sharper horizon behind the city. As they turned up a short drive lined with young pines, a simple sign came into view. "Foothill Crest Independent Living." No cartoon birds, no golden years nonsense, just clean lettering and stone. Looks like nobody's forcing bingo on you, Tee the door, Leona said, pulling into a visitor spot. Evelyn adjusted her coat and took in the low, modern building, wide windows, flat roof, a covered entry with benches. It looked less like a facility and more like a quiet apartment complex that happened to be facing the mountains on purpose. Inside, warm air hit her first, carrying the smell of fresh coffee and something cinnamon thick and sweet. A fireplace glowed in the lobby, electric but convincing, with two residents arguing amiably over a jigsaw puzzle spread on a low table. Evelyn, a woman in a teal sweater and name badge, walked over, hand outstretched. "I'm Dana," we spoke on the phone. Her handshake was firm. She didn't do the tilt-head pity look at the cane, she just clocked it and slowed her pace a little. "We baked today," Dana said, nodding toward the open community kitchen. "Cinnamon coffee cake, it's how we trick people into liking the tour." "It's working," Leona muttered. They walked wide hallways, bright, quiet, carpeted so footsteps didn't echo. Doors stood open here and there, someone watched a game show, someone else laughed at a tablet propped up on a stand. "We're independent living," Dana explained. "You cook if you want, join meals if you want. We check on folks once a day, but otherwise it's your schedule, your space." Evelyn listened to the silence between sounds. No slamming doors, no footsteps pacing for effect, no voices cutting through the air like knives, just the low, even murmur of people living. At the end of a hallway, Dana stopped by a door and pulled out a key. "This is the corner unit I mentioned," she said. "Good light, mountain view. If you hate it, you can blame me personally." The apartment was small but honest about it. One bedroom, a compact kitchen with new appliances, a bathroom with grab bars that didn't look like afterthoughts. Sun poured through two big windows in the living area where a built-in bench hugged the corner, a proper window seat. "Go on," Leona urged. "You know you want to." Evelyn eased herself onto the seat. The cushion was firm, just enough give. From there, she could see the city in the mid-distance and the mountains beyond, their ridges softened by lingering snow. A crow coasted on an updraft, a dark flicker against the pale sky. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "How's your hip with the layout?" Dana asked. "We can add a higher toilet, shower chair, whatever you need." "It's manageable," Evelyn said. "Better than stairs and ice." Elm Street flashed in her mind, narrow steps, old banister, the sound of Kara's voice echoing down a hallway that had once held birthday parties and school mornings. Now this quiet space in front of her felt like the opposite of that, still hers but not haunted. "There's a wait list for some units," Dana said. "This one's open now. If you wanted it, it wouldn't stay lonely long." Evelyn glanced at Leona. "I promise not to move in next door," Leona said, "unless they let me bribe them with coffee cake." Evelyn looked back out at the mountains. For years, she'd told patients not to stay in houses that hurt them more than they helped. Stairs and bathtubs and bad wiring. "You deserve somewhere safe," she'd say, like she wasn't exempt. "I'll take it," she said. Dana's smile reached her eyes. "We'll get the paperwork started," she said. "Nothing complicated, just a lease, not a trap." The signatures were almost easy now. Name, date, emergency contact, no blanks for daughter. When Dana slid the keys across the table, a brass one for the unit, a fob for the front door, Evelyn curled her fingers around them and felt something settle. 2 days later, she stood in the storage unit she and Kara had once shared. Concrete floor, metal door, fluorescent hum. Boxes were stacked haphazardly. Old toys, holiday junk, clothes Kara swore she'd get back into. A lamp Evelyn had never liked. They'd already hauled out what she wanted. Her mother's quilt, a box of photos, the dishes she'd bought herself. What was left looked like a thrift store lost and found. "Donate piles ready," Leona said, nodding at the open unit. "Anything else you want to save?" Evelyn scanned the shelves. This was the debris Kara had always called ours. Almost none of it had ever been truly hers. "No," she said. "I'm done holding things for people who don't hold me." They loaded the last donation box into a charity van. When it pulled away, the unit stood empty. Evelyn locked it one last time, slipped the small key off her ring, and slid it into a plain envelope. On the front, she wrote in neat capitals, Kara. She left it with the office clerk. "If my daughter comes asking," she said, "that's hers." Later, in her new corner apartment, the movers gone, Evelyn sat on the window seat as afternoon thinned into evening. Her towels hung on the rack, her books fit on a single shelf. The mountains glowed faintly pink. Her phone buzzed in her palm, a new message from Nate. "Grandma, will I you again?" Evelyn didn't answer Nate's text right away. She sat on the window seat, phone warm in her hand, watching the last lights slide off the mountains. The question glowed on the screen. "Grandma, will I see you again?" The ache behind her ribs had nothing to do with her hip. She typed, Yes, when it's not through her. Then erased it. Instead, she put the phone face down beside her and reached for the spiral notebook she kept on the little table by the window. The cover was plain blue, the first pages filled with grocery lists and reminders. She flipped to a blank sheet and wrote at the top in careful block letters, Obituary EVLYNMBARD draft. She stared at the words a moment. Writing her own ending on a Tuesday afternoon felt strange and oddly honest, like cleaning out a closet no one else would ever do right. She started with the basics. Evelyn Marie Baird, 7, of Denver, Colorado, died peacefully. She left the date blank, that part wasn't hers yet. She wrote about the hospital where she'd spent 30 years as a nurse's aide, the home care visits, the patients whose hands she'd held. She wrote about her late husband, about their too-short marriage and their one beat-up starter house that she'd turned into something solid. She wrote about the charities instead of the parties, food banks, midnight phone calls from women who didn't know where else to go, how she'd lent couches and time and casseroles and never once put guest in air quotes. When she got to the line everyone expected, she is survived by, her pen hesitated. Old habit tried to lift her hand, daughter Cara, grandson Nate, a tidy package, a lie. Slowly, she wrote. She is survived by her grandson, Nathan Baird, and by friends who became family. She stopped, the quiet in the apartment seemed to lean in. No daughter, the omission was louder than a name would have been. An hour later, Trina's assistant scanned the handwritten page and neatly typed version into a legacy file on the firm's server. Prearrangements, they called it. Evelyn called it making sure nobody got to tell her story wrong when she wasn't around to object. They sat at Trina's small side table, mugs of tea cooling between them. You're sure about the omission? Trina asked. No judgment, just confirmation. I'm sure, Evelyn said. She erased me in life long before I took her out of the paperwork. Trina nodded once. Then this is what we keep on file. If a funeral home calls someday, they'll get this, not whatever narrative your daughter cooks up. And the money part, Evelyn asked. Trina clicked to another tab. We can include a suggested charitable fund instead of flowers, she said. You mentioned High Ridge and the scholarship for Nate. Evelyn thought of wreaths that died in a week, of vases tipped over in church basements. No funeral fund, she said. If people feel like they have to do something, they can help the next woman who needs a safe place to sleep, or help Nate get out clean. Trina typed. In lieu of flowers, donations may be made to High Ridge Women's Refuge or the Baird Start Again Scholarship Fund. Formal enough, she asked. It's the truth, Evelyn said. Dress it up how you like. Later, at Leona's kitchen table, the printed obituary draft lay between a plate of cookies and a bottle of generic ibuprofen. Leona read it twice. Oof, she said finally, tapping the survived by line. You sure this is not going to haunt you? It's already been haunting me, Evelyn said. This is just putting the ghost in writing. Leona squinted. Is this petty or healing? Evelyn took the page back and folded it once, clean and sharp. It's healing dressed in clarity, she said. Petty is leaving her in and letting her speak over me when I'm gone. 2 days later, Cara found out. Somewhere between calls and complaints, she'd gone digging, calling the county, calling banks, finally calling Trina's office to get answers. She hit a wall of polite receptionists and firm confidentiality. Until one of them, a little too flustered by the volume of Cara's voice, said, Ma'am, we can't discuss Ms. Baird's estate or her pre-need obituary with you. Her what? Cara snapped. By the time Trina picked up, Cara was already shouting. You let her erase me, from everything, from her will, from the house, now from her obituary. Cara's voice crackled even over the handset at Trina's desk. I am her daughter. Trina kept her tone even. Your mother is a competent adult who gave clear instructions. I follow my client's wishes, that's the beginning and end of it. You people are manipulating her, Cara hissed. She's old, she's recovering, she's not thinking straight, I will fight this. You're welcome to seek your own counsel, Trina said, but challenging her decisions will trigger her no contest clause. You're aware of that, I hope. There was a beat of silence on the line, then a furious wet sound, half scoff, half choked breath, and the call disconnected. That same afternoon, in her quiet corner apartment, Evelyn hung a small calendar on the wall next to the kitchen. January, a photo of the Rockies in fresh snow. She took a pen and circled the day's square. In tiny, neat letters, she wrote, Stopped pretending. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A new message from Nate. Can I come see you, even if Mom says not to? Saturday came bright and sharp, the mountains cut clean against the sky. Evelyn moved slowly around the apartment, straightening what barely needed it, 2 mugs beside the kettle, A clean navy towel folded over the back of a chair in case Nate spilled something. She checked her phone. Nate, bus is slow, I'll be there a little after 1. She smiled and wrote back, I'll be here. At 1:30, the doorbell rang. Her heart jumped. She reached for her cane, crossed the small living room, and peered through the peephole, already half smiling. The smile died. Kara's face filled the fisheye glass, too close, eyes bright and wild, lips pressed thin. The bell rang again, longer. Mom, Kara called, voice sharp, open the door. Evelyn's hand hovered over the knob, then fell to her side. She stepped back, careful not to let the floor creak. You can't ignore me, Kara snapped, pounding now. You think this is normal, cutting your own daughter out of everything, sneaking off to whatever this place is? The door shuddered with each hit. Evelyn's heart pounded once hard, then settled into something slower. She walked to the kitchenette, turned on the kettle, and set 2 tea bags and 2 mugs, one for her, one for Nate whenever he actually made it here. Behind her, Kara's voice climbed. You let some lawyer turn you against me. You blocked me, you changed everything, and now you're hiding. This isn't right. Evelyn pulled out her phone, thumbed open Leona's name. She's at my door, she typed, here, Foothill. Leona's reply came fast. Step away from the door, I'm calling the front desk. Another. This is why buildings hire security. Let them do their job. Evelyn set the phone down and listened. A deeper knock sounded a minute later, farther away. A man's voice, calm, trained. Ma'am, building security, you need to stop pounding on that door. Evelyn went to the peephole again. Kara now faced a tall guard in a navy polo, Dana standing a few feet back. Kara's hands flew as she talked. She's my mother, Kara barked. You can't keep me from her, she's confused, this is elder abuse. Dana's voice stayed even. Ms. Baird, your mother signed a no-contact preference when she moved in. We're obligated to respect that. Evelyn blinked. She'd initialed so many forms that day, she hadn't realized that little box bought this much quiet. Kara scoffed. She doesn't mean it. She's being manipulated. She would never. Ma'am, security cut in firmer. If you don't leave, we'll have to involve the police. You're disturbing residents. For a second, Kara's gaze snapped back to the peephole, like she could feel her mother watching. You really think this is you winning? She hissed at the door. You don't get to delete me. I'm still your daughter. You owe me. Evelyn said nothing. After a beat, Kara let out a harsh, broken laugh, shook off Dana's attempt to hand her a card, and stalked toward the elevator. The doors slid open, then closed on her fury. The hallway fell quiet. The kettle began to whistle. Evelyn turned away from the peephole, shut the deadbolt out of habit, and poured the water. Steam rose, fragrant and calm. Her hands were steady as she carried her mug to the table and opened her book. Later, she rode the elevator down to the front desk. I'd like something added to my file, she told Dana. Of course, Dana said, pulling up the record. What would you like it to say? Evelyn looked her straight in the eye. Do not allow contact, Kara Baird, not without something in writing from me. Dana typed, then nodded. Done, if she comes back, we'll handle it, you don't have to. Back upstairs, the apartment was filled with late afternoon light. Her phone buzzed on the table. An email from Nate, just one line. I believe you. She read it twice, the tight knot behind her ribs loosening just a little. Then, before she could answer, another notification flashed across the top of the screen, Kara's name, and the first furious words of a message that made it clear she was done pounding on doors and ready to start something much bigger. Kara's last text sat at the top of the thread like a dare. You can change papers all you want. I'm still your next of kin, you can't erase blood. Evelyn stared at it for 3 slow breaths, then pressed and held until the thread slid into archive. Not erased, just somewhere she didn't have to trip over it. The next morning, erasing became paperwork. Foothill Crest's nurse sat beside her at the little desk, laptop open to a resident portal. A box on the screen blinked. Emergency contact, next of kin. Who do you want listed as primary? The nurse asked. For years, the answer H. Ad flown out of her without thinking. This time, Evelyn let the blank sit. Leona Strauss, she said, friend, primary for all medical decisions. The nurse typed it in, and next of kin. Evelyn watched the drop-down options, daughter/son/spouse/other none. None, she said. The nurse hesitated. Are you sure? I'm sure, Evelyn replied. If somebody needs to be called, call the one who shows up. The nurse clicked none, one quiet box filled. That afternoon, Evelyn opened a folder on her laptop labeled Account Info and moved down the list Trina had emailed her. Insurance portal. Delete Kara's name, add Leona, check no next of kin on file. Pension office, same. Bank, emergency contact updated, beneficiary lines already changed weeks ago. Each confirmation email chimed like a tiny bell. Your changes have been saved. When she'd done all she could online, she dragged a cardboard box from the closet to the middle of the living room. Inside, photos slumped in messy stacks. She sorted in silence. Nate at 5, missing teeth, keep. Nate and her at the zoo, keep. Kara at 10, arms crossed, glare for the camera. She hesitated, then slid it into an envelope marked NATE. If he ever wanted the old stories, they'd be his to decide. Pictures where Kara stood alone or where Evelyn's eyes were on a daughter who no longer existed in this form, those went into a separate pile. When the stack was high enough, she carried it to the kitchen trash can and fed them in face down. On her phone, she opened a gallery album labeled Family and started tapping the trash icon on anything that felt like fiction now. Later, at the very bottom of the box, she found Kara's baby quilt, tiny yellow ducks gone pale, stitches uneven where Evelyn's exhausted hands had wobbled. She held it to her chest for a long moment. You were small once, she whispered. That's the part I'll keep. The next day, she handed the quilt to a crisis nursery worker who promised it would go to a little one who needs something soft. As Evelyn left, she saw a toddler already dragging it across the floor, laughing. Back home, an email from Trina waited. Final security applied. Your will and trust are digitally locked. No edits without your in-person consent. Evelyn printed the latest copy anyway, pages warm against her palms. Her name, her choices. Kara nowhere near the words next of kin. She slid the will into the top drawer of her desk and closed it. Her phone buzzed. New voicemail transcript preview. Ms. Baird, this is a courtesy call about a possible legal action your daughter, Kara, is exploring. The voicemail about possible legal action never made it past the first word. Evelyn hit delete, set the phone face down, and watched frost creep along the window instead. December slipped in quietly at Foothill Crest. Paper snowflakes appeared on the hallway walls, white lights around the front desk, a fake pine wreath on Evelyn's door she didn't remember agreeing to but didn't take down either. A flyer showed up in her mailbox. Holiday cookie swap, 2 p.m. Bring a recipe, not perfection. Leona held it up like evidence. Perfect, you remember how to laugh or I start spiking your tea. The community kitchen was loud in a soft way, pans clattering, timers beeping, Motown slipping out of someone's Bluetooth speaker. Evelyn took a spot at the counter and started on oatmeal cookies with cinnamon and walnuts, muscle memory guiding the spoon. First time, the woman next to her asked, dusting sugar over crooked gingerbread men. Is it that obvious? Evelyn said. Don't worry, the woman grinned. Everybody's new once. Someone dropped a tray, someone misread cups for tablespoons. A joke about smoke alarms went around the room, and Evelyn heard herself laugh short, bright, unforced. It startled her so much she had to set the spoon down. Across town, in the dim light of a smaller kitchen, Kara snapped a photo of their lopsided tree and typed, "Holidays aren't the same." She toggled comments off before posting, grief without witnesses, performance without pushback. Days later, Evelyn found a thick envelope in her Foothill mailbox. Inside, a neatly typed poem and a note in Nate's handwriting. I had to write this for English, poem about home. I wrote about you. The poem was clumsy and earnest and perfect. Home is the couch that never charges rent. And the voice that says you're not a burden. Like it's obvious, not a favor. Her birthday came and went with a cheap paper crown from Leona and a grocery store cake. That night, Evelyn wrote exactly one card. Nate, thank you for the poem. One thing I've learned, gentleness lives longer than anger. Keep choosing it. Love, Grandma. She mailed it the next morning, breath ghosting in the cold. A week later in the lobby, Leona sipped coffee and watched families come and go. You want to drive by Kara S., she asked. One last look. I already visited her one last time, Evelyn said, the morning I walked out with my suitcase. On the bulletin board, a new flyer caught her eye. Family RE Homing Program Holiday Match. Help us move people into safer homes. That afternoon, she wrote a check that pinched just enough memo line for the ones who leave and don't go back. She left the envelope by the door. To mail, her phone buzzed. Unknown numbers. It's Nate, Mom knows. It's Nate, Mom knows. Evelyn read the text standing by her door, donation envelope still in her hand. She's mad, says you turned everyone against her. I still want to see you, is that okay? Her thumbs felt heavy, but the answer didn't. Yes. Lobby tomorrow after school. The next day, she was on the edge of her bed, coat already on, 10 minutes before he was due. Her hip ached from getting up to check the time. At 3:38, the phone rang from the front desk. Ms. Baird, your grandson is here. Her knees didn't quite trust her, but her voice did. I'm coming down. Nate sat in the lobby on a too small couch, backpack at his feet, shoulders hunched like he was trying not to take up space. Taller, thinner, hair in his eyes. When he saw her, he shot to his feet. Hey, he said, like they'd seen each other last week. Hey, she echoed. They stared for a beat, both cataloging what time had done. You look good, he tried. You look like you grew out of 3 pairs of jeans, she said. He snorted, tension cracking. Yeah, sorry about that. Come on, she said, soup's waiting, that's the only dramatic thing about today. In the elevator, he watched the floor numbers. Mom thinks I'm at the library, he said. I brought my backpack so it's not a total lie. Make sure you leave with a book, she replied, then it won't be one at all. Inside her apartment, he stopped, taking everything in the window seat, the poem on the wall, the smallness. This is nice, he said, like a reading nook you can live in. That's the idea, shoes off, new rug, old lady hip. He lined his sneakers up by the door just like he had as a kid, and she had to swallow around the lump in her throat. They ate chicken and rice soup at the tiny table, steam, clinking spoons, silence that didn't feel hostile. You still inhale books, huh? He said, nodding toward the shelf. I do, she said. Now nobody yells at me for leaving them on the couch. They talked about stories instead of family, characters who stayed too long, characters who finally walked out. He relaxed more with every plot twist. Eventually, he stopped playing with his spoon. Mom says you abandoned us, he said, that you're punishing her and me. Is that what you think? Oh, she asked. He shook his head, jaw tight. I think you left a place that hurt, and I think I hid in my room and pretended I couldn't hear it. You were a kid, she said. You found your own shelter. He stared at the table. You're the only person who ever forgave me with action, he blurted. The scholarship, the email, you didn't say I forgive you. You just did something for me. You never owed me more than kindness, she said, and you gave it, even when it meant whispering sorry about Mom on your way to the bus. When he stood to leave, they hesitated at the door, both hovering. Evelyn stepped forward and hugged him. He bent awkwardly, then held on, arms firm around her in a way that said I'm still here more clearly than words. This door is always open for you, she said, no matter what she says. Even if she finds out I was here, he asked. Especially then, she answered. After he left, the apartment felt settled instead of empty. She sat on the window seat, eyes on the framed poem with his name at the bottom, and realized she'd just met the only person she trusted with what came after her, and the one name she was utterly done with forever. After Nate left, Evelyn sat at her desk and wrote on a yellow sticky note. If not her, then who? She didn't need more than one answer. Trina pushed her glasses up and opened Evelyn's file again. All right, she said, what are we locking in? The house, Evelyn replied. Elm Street, when I'm gone it doesn't float, it lands. Where? Trina asked, even though she was already guessing. My grandson, Evelyn said. Nate, not because of her, in spite of her. Trina's pen started moving. We amend the trust, Elm Street transfers to Nathan Baird at 25. Until then the trust holds it. Your daughter, she looked up. Gets nothing, Evelyn said, on purpose, write it that way. Trina nodded once. We'll add an explicit disinheritance clause, judges like clarity, intentionally omitted, puts a legal period on it. And if I can't speak for myself, Evelyn asked, hospitals, funeral home, all that. Who do you want in the room? Trina said. Leona, Evelyn answered. If someone else arguing with a clipboard, I want her doing the arguing. Trina typed, successor trustee and final decision maker, Leona Strauss. Then she turned the screen so Evelyn could see the heading at the top of the new document. Trust restatement, irrevocable upon execution. Once you sign this, Trina said, no one changes it without jumping through legal fire. Your daughter can scream herself hoarse. The paperwork won't move. Good, Evelyn said. I'm tired of everything moving around her moods. She signed, initials. Full name, date, no tremor, no pause. On the way home, Leona pulled into the employee lot of their old hospital. You ready? She asked. Evelyn nodded. She got me through 30 years, time for her to help someone else. They handed the keys to a coordinator from a nurse reentry program, who blinked hard behind her glasses. This will get one of our nurses to clinicals, she said. You just changed somebody's whole year. Feels familiar, Evelyn said. A week later, Trina's assistant stood in Evelyn's apartment with a small camera. Legacy photo, she explained, better than your driver's license. Evelyn sat on the window seat, mountains behind her, hands folded over a paperback Nate had left. Just look where you actually live now, the girl said. She did, the shutter clicked. On the tiny preview screen, Evelyn saw herself, lined, a little tired but unmistakably unbothered, a woman whose life finally fit in her own hands. Thursdays became their day. Nate showed up with scuffed paperbacks, mysteries, memoirs, the occasional fantasy he swore she'd like if you can get past the dragon's grandma. They traded books and theories. He never asked for money. She never asked for details about Kara. That silence between them felt intentional, like closing a window against a storm. One evening after he left, Evelyn opened her desk drawer. On top sat the updated trust, Elm Street to Nate at 25. Kara explicitly omitted. Leona in charge if anything got messy. Her phone buzzed on the desk. Unknown number, she almost ignored it until the caller ID finished loading. Denver Medical Center, RESULTS Department. Metastatic. The word hung in the air long after the Denver medical results nurse hung up. Months, not years. Comfort, not cure. Evelyn sat at her desk, the updated trust in front of her, and opened her laptop. On the funeral home portal, a line read, "Nearest next of kin will be contacted upon death." She clicked edit and typed, "Do not notify any family. Legal medical contact only, Leona Strauss, see attached documents." Save, a small green check appeared. "You don't get the last phone call," she murmured. "You wasted the first ones." A week later, Foothills community room smelled like tea and lemon cookies. A simple sign on the door. "Tell you 4 women who chose peace." Hosted by Baird Living Trust. Evelyn hadn't wanted a microphone, so Dana just tapped a spoon against a mug and nodded to her. Evelyn stood, hands resting on the back of a chair. "I spent a long time thinking leaving made me a bad mother," she said. "Then my lungs reminded me I didn't have time for other people's definitions." Soft laughter, a few wet eyes. "I had a daughter," she went on. "She lived, but she was no longer mine." The room went very still. No one flinched away. A few heads nodded, slow and knowing. "So I gave what I had to people who might actually want it," she finished. "If you're in this room, that includes you." Afterward, women pressed her hands, sharing whispered fragments. "My son, my sister, my ex," like confession and weather report. At Greenwood Cemetery, the office smelled of carnations and dust. "You currently have a companion notation," the director said, scrolling. "Your husband, then future burial's daughter." "Remove her," Evelyn said. "Leave it blank." He blinked. "Are you sure?" "I'm dying," she said calmly. "I'm not confused." Keys clacked. "Companion removed," he confirmed. "No additional names on the plot." Good, she thought. She didn't need Kara lying over her in death after stepping on her in life. On the first warm Saturday, Nate arrived with a sapling in a black plastic pot. "Maple," he said. "Thought you should have one that isn't in somebody else's yard." With permission from maintenance, he dug in the narrow strip of soil under her window. Evelyn sat in a folding chair, crumbling dirt around the roots with her fingers. "Someday," he said, patting the soil, "you'll see leaves from your bed." "Or you will," she said. "Either way, it's ours, not hers." That night, she took an index card, wrote in small, careful letters. "I got up, and I didn't come back." She taped it to the underside of her little window table, hidden but permanent. As she straightened, her phone buzzed. "Leona, got my own test results. Call me." "It's your turn to be in my paperwork." Evelyn lay in her bed by the window, the young maple brushing against the glass with each small breeze. Morphine dulled the sharp edges, the rest of the pain she'd already handled on paper. Leona dozed in the chair, pen still in her hand, crossword half finished. Nate sat on the window seat, a book open but unread. "You want me to read?" he asked softly. "Something where she gets out," Evelyn murmured, eyes half closed. He read a page about a woman who finally left a house that never loved her back. When he looked up again, her chest had stilled, mouth relaxed, hand finally slack in Leona's. Leona checked for a pulse she knew she wouldn't find. "Al." "El right, Ev," she whispered, pressing a kiss to her friend's knuckles. "You're off duty." No drama, hospice called, paperwork signed. The maple kept tapping the glass like it was keeping time. 3 weeks later, in a small conference room, Trina laid out the will. "This is for interested parties," she said. Only Nate and Leona sat at the table. She read through the gifts, the rentals to High Ridge, the scholarship fund, small bequests. Then she paused. "There's one line your grandmother asked me to read out loud," she told Nate. Her voice didn't waver. "To my daughter, Cara Baird, I removed your name first, as instructed." Leona exhaled a hard little finally. Nate stared at the table, jaw tight, then nodded once, like a verdict had just been read that matched the evidence. Outside, a certified copy went into the mail, addressed to Cara. It arrived at an apartment where all the arguments were already stacked and waiting. She tore it open, searched for numbers, saw none. By the time she reached that single line with her name in it, there was nothing left to inherit but the fact. Online, the story assembled without her. High Ridge posted a photo of two small houses. Because of the Baird Trust, more women have a safe place to start over. The foundation shared a picture of Nate and Leona holding a binder. The Baird Start Again Scholarship continues under the care of co-trustees Nathan Baird and longtime advocate Leona Strauss. At Foothill, someone posted a shot of the T. "In memory of Evelyn, our quiet thunder." Sitting on the window seat, laptop balanced on his knees, Nate added his own. A photo of the maple reaching up past her window, the framed poem, The Empty Seat. He typed, "She chose peace, I'll protect it." He hit post. Behind the photo, under the little table by the window, the card she'd taped still waited. "I got up, and I didn't come back." And over all of it, her last private verdict held firm. "My daughter said you're not a guest here, so I got up and made sure she'd never be one in my legacy."